Hold on, y'all. I'm just waiting to bring.
Hey, hey, hey. Let me get myself together.
Hey, can you say something so I can make sure there's no echo?
Hi, Dottie. Hey,
Hey,
girl.
Shamika.
No echo.
Can y'all hear me? Let me know if y'all can hear me.
I can hear
Can
you,
you see
Dottie.
if you can hear me?
I can hear you. You good? You kind of fading in and out, but I can hear you. What? Dottie, are you there?
Can y'all hear me? Can
I can
y'all?
hear you now. Hi, Mimi. Hi, K Baby. Hi, Gigi. Nisha, Lisa, Barbara, Janice. Yeah, you look
Oh,
kind of, huh? You're in and out, Dottie. You're frozen.
Okay.
Janice says she can hear both of us. Hi, Denise. K Baby. Hey. You're appear. There you go. There you go. There you go. What you had to do?
Why does it sound so low? I was waiting on. Sorry, you guys. I'm waiting on Daddy Lolo.
Where him at?
Um, huh? I can barely hear it.
Can you hear me,
Yeah.
Dottie? Hi, Gigi. Dottie, can you hear me? I don't think you can, girl.
Might need something because for audio.
Hey everybody,
Hey, Daddy Lolo.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm blessed.
I know. Hey, baby. Good.
That's okay.
Dottie, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. It's just really low.
The, let me see. Mm,
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. I guess you know what. I'm gonna just as long as y'all can hear me, we good, right?
yeah, we can hear you.
I hear you very well.
Sound pretty loud.
Hey, hey, Lolo, talk to all the guests for 1 second, okay? Let me try to fix the sound.
Okay.
Okay, so Lola, yes, today was it a good day or what? Would you say it's a good day?
Started off a bad day, ended up as a good day.
Okay.
I I don't know what to say about the judge.
You kind of iffy about him at this point?
Yeah,
Why?
cause he didn't allow old boy Jim
Derek got it.
Goddess to speak.
Do we think he would have been
I got it.
got it?
I said just to
Yeah.
talk. I didn't tell him to give him information.
Oh, okay, okay.
No,
I'm
I'm just
sorry.
joking. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Now we hear
I'm just
okay.
joking. Really?
Yeah, but you go ahead and start and then we'll just mute.
No, because if everybody can hear that echo, it wouldn't make sense.
It only echoes when we talk.
Oh, okay.
So you go ahead.
Okay, so anybody in the chat, if you hear echo, just let me know. Okay, so today they started out with that motion from Jim Derrel. You guys know, to squash the subpoena. They hadn't received a response from McDavid's team, so they just decided that they would respond to that in court. Um, at that time, they brought in Jim Derrel and his attorney. The judge was asking the McDavid's team, what do they think should be admissible as far as that tape goes? Joe McDavid's attorneys were saying that they aren't interested in none of his conversations or none of the interviews that he's did, but they're more so interested in the video and to have him testify as to it being the same tape from 2002. So it wasn't the context of what was on the tape. They wanted him to be able to identify that the tape was the one that he actually first seen when it was delivered to him. They wanted him to be able to say that that tape that he got had no label, and basically that the government has not produced the actual tape from 2002. And it was pretty much saying that he would be the only one to do that because he was the one who received the tape first. The judge had asked, was they saying that the court had pretty much got it wrong when they authenticated the tape? And Darrell McDavid's attorney, Mr. Brinkley, said, well, to an extent, yes, because he's the only one that can really authenticate that tape, and that would be what he would have in his hands in the court. It was the same thing that was delivered to him in 2002. So the judge asked, what was the difference between it being authenticated then and now? He was saying that it had been authenticated, and then Mr. Brinkley told the judge, no, it really has not, because no one's actually established that that's the same tape. You did have one witness say that tape that they had no label. So, and then there's the issue with the chain of command. Jennifer cuts in as well, and she says that they plan to also ask Jim Derrel about the timing and when he received the tape and when he did his actual reporting, because they're saying that one woman actually filed a lawsuit before anything was even in the news about the tape, so before anything had actually hit the media. Oh yeah, let me show y'all my necklace. I got this from a supporter at court today, you guys. Okay, so thank you. Jim's attorney said that he has repeatedly said that he's received the tape and how. Rather than subpoena him and discourage reporters from coming to these type of trials, there's absolutely no reason for him to testify. He has been harassed for years because of this. The judge says, well, a subpoena was issued to him back in August, so for you to come in now, he was basically trying to say, why'd you wait so late? He said, but I feel that the tape has been authenticated and he didn't see any reason for him to testify. After saying that, Jim thanks the judge and he says, and thank you for my First Amendment right. So him and his attorney at that time leave the courtroom. They decide to address the second motion, which it was Derrel McDavid's motion, and then that one that was the government. What they were saying, their position was pretty much in some parts it was granted, and in other parts it was denied. It was about Derrel McDavid testifying about the billing statements and etc. The government says that some of that could be prejudicial, and the judge says he's previously ruled on this, and he will just pretty much continue to keep the same ruling that he had before about the billing statements. The third motion was Kelly's request to cross-examine Derrel McDavid. The government objects. The judge asks how long as long as the government stays within the boundaries. If they don't, he will allow a cross-examination, but if they don't stay within the boundaries, then as of now, he was denying that motion for Jennifer to cross-examine. And then they discussed the barring of 404 readings. Jennifer elaborates for the judge that she says she has limited info on Derrel McDavid's testimony. She says them not being notified kind of it brought up an issue. She says she does not want the Florida arrest should be off limit. They should not be able to talk about anything pertaining to that because they haven't seen any materials about that. Judge asked, do you plan to ask? And the government says it depends. The judge says, do you plan to ask? If it depends, and they said it depends on the government's cross-examination. The Derrel McDavid's attorney said that they agree with Ms. Bonjean. Because that Florida arrest was an illegal search, they shouldn't be able to discuss that or anything that deals with the Florida lawsuit or arrest. But if the government does ask, he will be asking, he should be able to ask questions on direct regarding it. So basically, if the government says something, he should be able to come back and explain it under questioning by his attorneys for clarification purposes. So he says the government says they won't be diving in too deep into that, so it's not even necessary. So the judge basically granted that for Bonjean.
They won't be diving into it too deep.
They wouldn't be talking about it. They're not gonna ask too many questions regarding that.
Okay.
They said, and to bar anything that's related to Aaliyah, the judge said that was automatically granted. He stated to the government that is strictly off limits. Do not discuss Aaliyah. Bonjean stated that there were a number of prior lawsuits that had came out after Derrel had began reporting about making his reports. She said, I don't think that they should all be allowed into court. And Derrel McDavid should not be allowed to testify to all of those lawsuits. They asked Derrel McDavid's team, do you plan to ask any questions about that? They say they only plan to ask questions pertaining to the lawsuit of Tiffany Hawkins. Derrel McDavid was present for that deposition, and based on a questioning, they made several. The government's questions. They gave several testimonies and opinions, and they basically would just want him to testify to that to show the order that they did to get paid with these. Let me say the experience. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, and his team was basically saying his experience and his thoughts on Robert's guilt or not was based on a lot. It began with the Tiffany Hawkins situation, so they wanted to talk about that. the government, they reiterated that this case is full of a bunch of lawsuits, and they said that they do feel Derrel McDavid will have to testify about some of them lawsuits. And the judge says, well, I don't know how many lawsuits there is. And then Derrel McDavid's attorney says, well, there are quite a few lawsuits. So he basically denied and he limited to what the Derrel McDavid can testify to, and he said the government can cross-examine him. They said most of the lawsuits pertains, at least I believe it was 4, right, Lo? At least 4 of them pertained or had Tiffany and Patricia Jones' name all across the board for that. Judge says that he will rule on those as they come about, meaning when the government see an issue they can object, and he would decide then. They wanted Derrel McDavid teams feels that he would have to address a undersigned complaint. He said it discusses things Derrel McDavid may have had some involvement in. Certain things should not be discussed. They didn't want to talk about the lawsuit that was filed where Derrel McDavid was suing R. Kelly for $1.5 million. I know there was a lot of back and forth because the judge said, well, we already had testimony on that lawsuit, and then they talked about, no, it's another lawsuit that we're talking about. And the judge said, well, if the government doesn't plan on asking about it, then it should be limited. Jennifer says that the complaint is it brings prejudice to her client because the details in the complaint serves no purpose she says the government really wouldn't get anything out of asking questions on the detailed info of these lawsuits. It's highly prejudicial to him, and it brings all it's doing is talking about lawsuits that's not related to the case. Some of this is not related to sex at all. Some of it's related to former employees, and some of it pertains to R. Kelly having to receive shots for sexual impulses. The judge says the shots for the sexual impulses is definitely off limits. The judge is given a copy of the 403 to rule on. At one point, they thought Derrel McDavid probably wouldn't testify until tomorrow. Bonjean is also asking to bar statements that Rob may have made in private to Mr. Jensen in front of Derrel McDavid, because at that time, Derrel McDavid was an active agent of Mr. Jensen, and he's saying that he shouldn't be able to talk about anything that Rob discussed because of attorney-client privileges. Derrel McDavid's attorneys don't think the attorney-client privilege should be allowed here because he has the right to talk about anything that keeps him from being criminally prosecuted. So basically, if he's facing criminal charges, he has the right to defend himself, and if that's a part of that, he should be able to discuss it. Derrel McDavid says Rob never made any confessions of guilt to him. They don't plan on submitting anything that says that. The only thing that they ever talked about was Kelly told Lisa Van Allen that Kelly told Derrel McDavid that Lisa Van Allen contacted him and said she had stolen tape of his wife and Kelly was worried about that tape getting to the media. That's not harmful to Mr. Kelly. So none of the statements will be statements incriminating him. Derrel McDavid's attorney says he don't believe it'll be an issue. Judge said he'll rule on it as it comes up. So the first witness would have been by video. We began to have technical difficulties, so they just moved past. Bonjean called a stipulation witness. And that was once again Agent Molina. She had testified last week. She said she was assigned to the case back in March 2019. She was part of her responsibilities were gathering files from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. She went to the office and picked up boxes with grand jury info, reports, media reports, things that pertain to the 2008 trial that started in 2002. The indictment and everything took place in 2002. The trial started after being delayed for 6 years in 2008. In preparation, this is Jennifer. In preparation, did you become familiar with the case? Yes. Through police reports and investigative reports? Yes. Did you see anything in those reports that say Tracy participated in a threesome? No name was ever mentioned, but her name was not mentioned. None of that. Nor was there a report with her name that she had been involved. I'm sorry, that she had ever been interviewed. No. Does any document reflect that she participated in the threesome? No. No further questions. The government cross-examined. You didn't put those documents together, did you? No. You just picked them up? Yes. So you're not saying that this was a complete file? I'm not. Do you remember interviewing in 2017 with Tracy? There was an objection. Bonjean said that's outside of the scope. The judge sustained the objection. The government went on to ask, you can't say that she was not ever interviewed. She said, correct. Wasn't a report in the docs that you had seen that said she was. Correct. Bonjean cross-examines. Did you see a document that said, don't interview Tracy? She says no. And these documents is from April 2002. So she said she didn't see a document that actually said not to interview Tracy. So then they began to show her the document to refresh her memory. The investigator said, it said, Tracy was located, but do not contact her. She said, yes, it says that. There's no grand jury statements or any testimony or anything in there either. She says no. So there was no further questions. The next witness was McDavid's witness. It was Martha Johansson. She lives in Reno, Nevada. She's 66 years old. She answers phones and does group emails and things for a group of psychiatrists. She worked back for Jack Palladino and his company. Jack was a private investigator. He was also a licensed attorney at that time. He was hired by all high-profile clients like the Clintons, Russell Crowe, Courtney Love. It was mainly attorneys that hired him. She worked directly with him starting back in 1980 up into the last year, which would have been about 41 years. She stopped because he was unfortunately killed. Her title was similar to her administrative assistant. She said because at his office, they really didn't have titles. Her duties include everything that needed to be done in the office, which included preparing client files, review files, and invoices. She said she did not generate the invoices, but she did put them together and put them away. She maintained the files she kept. She said she was familiar with the type of docs that he used to conduct business. She said they did represent R. Kelly. She says she doesn't remember who actually hired him, but she knows it would have had to have been an attorney. They asked her, did your job duties extend over into the R. Kelly files? She said yes. Showing her exhibits that he had sent to her, because remember this, I don't know if I mentioned that this was video. So she wasn't in person, you guys. This was video. So they had sent her the exhibits prior to her coming on today. And they sent her exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. They no longer had the originals because of his passing. She no longer had access to them. They asked her did she review what was sent. She said yes. She said they appeared to be copies of the original documents he kept. Was these documents Were these documents kept by Jack Palladino? Yes. Were they made because of the business he conducted? Yes. Are they true and accurate? Yes. At that time, they were asked to be admitted into evidence. It was um, going over Exhibit 9, which was an invoice. At that time, the government asked for a sidebar. When they finished the invoice, pretty much on the invoice, the date was November the 12th, 2002. Derrel McDavid's name was on top. The invoice starts with page 2. The label is Kelly Extortion. The dates covered is from August the 8th, 2001 up until July 3rd, 2002. The description shows what activities was happening at the time that these invoices were being made. One of the dates was August the 21st, 2001. Jack Palladino had billed them for a telephone conference that was from 2 to 5 with Freeman and McDavid. It was titled Extortion Call. The agreement was titled Award and Expense Agreement. On that statement, on that invoice, it also shows the August 24th, 2001. There was a conference call with McDavid, August 23rd, 2001, between 9 and 10 p.m. Jack Palladino obtained funding for travel. He was traveling to Kansas. He had a conference with Chuck. That at that time the polygraph test was taken. Nowhere on that paper does it say that Derrel McDavid was in attendance. And she says no. No further questions. So then Bajin questions her. She says, going over Exhibit 9, any entry that reflects Jack Palladino had a conversation with Kelly? No. Any meetings with Kelly? No. No further questions. So then the government comes up, cross-examines. Okay, you said you worked for Jack for 41 to 42 years. Yes. Did you enjoy it? He said most of the time. Is it fair to say that you were pretty loyal? He said yes. You wouldn't say anything to tarnish his name. She said if I had something to say, I would, but I don't. You work for his people. You worked for people with a lot of money. She said yes. He wasn't cheap. Jack actually his build actually started at $300 an hour. The government said, well, some of these entries totaled up to some of these entries were up to $4,000. She said yes. He was hired to do a good job, correct? Yes. He was hired by lawyers? Yes. So his interest would be more on the side of his client, correct? Yes. To make his client look good. She said his job was to find all the facts, not to always make his clients look good. They said you have records. I'm trying to see what this word is, you guys. Bear with me. You have records. That you don't talk about them. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the government asked, you obtain records. You basically he said he keeps the records where they don't show his clients in a positive light. Do they have records that don't show their client in a positive light? And she says, yeah, they have that. Jack wasn't a publicist, correct? Correct. He didn't write these in a journalistic fashion, correct? She says correct. Then they go back to talking about the records on Exhibit 9. The government asked, "You didn't have to write these, correct?" No. So the example, um, you weren't on any of those calls. They asked, so for example, you weren't on any of those calls that we're referring to, and she says no. You don't know if it's accurate. Who was in the room when them calls were made? And she says no, because she said no, I wouldn't know. They asked her about travel, and they asked, do you know? You don't know if when Derrel McDavid, you don't know that he wasn't actually in Kansas when them calls were made. And she says, I don't. Um, they said, you didn't put these documents together. She said, no. You didn't supply the info in the documents. No. You didn't supply info on the other exhibits either. She says, no, I didn't. You said that he wasn't a cheap man. She said, yes. He charged clients for writing up these docs. And she said, sometimes yes, sometimes no. You understand that this is a business, this is a client-driven business. And she says, correct. You want to keep your clients happy, right? He said, yes. So they may not always be happy with what they're given. So at that time, he goes to Exhibit A. He said Exhibit A is about 70 pages. So there was an objection. Derrel McDavid said, we didn't ask to move this into evidence, so we shouldn't be discussing this. Bonjean says she doesn't even know what Exhibit A is. It hasn't been shown to her. And the Derrel McDavid attorney again said this is out of the scope. They at that time asked for a sidebar. That objection was sustained. So they went to Exhibit 1. This is the report of the investigation. The government asked, he wasn't a police officer, right? He says, correct. There are other reports like this, right? Yes. Was he charging? She said, sometimes. She said, the government says, Kelly wasn't a pro bono matter, was he? And she said, no. Was he paying? Yes. You wasn't present in any event when these records were created. She said, correct. You don't know if any of this is even accurate, do you? She said, I was not present for any of it. They said, without being specific, a couple of unsigned affidavits are there. She said, I believe so. She was trying to go through the exhibits to see which ones were actually unsigned. They said Exhibit 3, yes, that's an unsigned declaration. Exhibit 5, unsigned, yes. You don't know if any of these are accurate. And she said that's correct. So Derrel McDavid's attorneys cross-examined. Jack Palladino had great attention to detail, correct? Yes. Did you know him to put any false information on billing statements? Never. If he uncovered bad info, he would still tell the client. She said, absolutely, because if he uncovered it, then the chances are someone else could too. There was no further questions. The stipulation was read by Ashley. So the stipulation goes, kind of summed it up, you guys. May 10, 2019. Representatives went to the office at the Daily Center and was asked for lawsuit information pertaining to Tracy versus Kelly. Representative received these documents. They have tendered all copies of the received documents involving this case to the court. So, Haley is Bonjean's next witness. She is a paralegal that works at the Bonjean law firm. She has a variety of responsibilities. I'm not going to go over all her responsibilities because obviously as a paralegal, she does a lot. She reviews cases. She goes over discovery. When the discovery came in for this particular case, there was hundreds of disks that pertained thousands of discovery. They asked her, did she review material for the Tracy versus Kelly? She said yes. She said when she gets it, she actually creates a discovery log. She will label each piece of the document, identifying which part is for what when it pertains to the court file for Tracy. And she said pretty much that's basically so that anybody that looks at that file, they know where to go for what. So where I'm at, am I good, you guys? Nick said where I'm at.
You good?
I'm good. Okay.
Sorry, y'all, for the echo.
The type of the docs was, they said the type of docs that they were that she had were court files, pleadings, motions, court appearances. It was about 300 pages. There was a call file, which the call file is basically phone records that had an association with Tracy. One of them was the name of a family member of Tracy's. The phone records just had call details, which would be like dates, the length of the call, etc. The earliest was April 11, 2000, and to January 2001. There were no records for any dates before that. So that's important, you guys, because if you go back over Tracy's testimony, those dates don't add up for whatever she testified to. The government cross-examined and said, you didn't review the docs from her attorney, though, did you? No. You don't know if her civil attorney subpoenaed records from 99. No. You don't know if she talked to Kelly in 99. No. You also don't know if she even filed her documents within Cook County Circuit Court. She said no. Majin comes back and cross-examines. Do you know anything? Did you do anything to get those complete files from her attorneys? She said, yes, I did. I drafted up a subpoena and I sent it to her attorneys. She said she never received any information back or anything from that attorney. No further questions. At that time, we went to break. Okay, y'all ready? Because Derrel McDavid is the next. Let me ask myself again. He's the next witness. I know y'all ready for this. So after break, Derrel comes in.
Get your popcorn ready.
Damn, I'm looking at how long this is. I don't know. I can't finish this. Hold on. Okay.
Hello to everybody in chat.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to brace myself. It's like 30 pages, y'all. And I've been sitting like this all day in court, and I gotta keep sitting. Okay. Bear with me. Please. Okay, so Derrel McDavid, he lives in Chicago. He's lived there for over 50 years. He's a certified public accountant. If I need to slow down, Kanye Lolo, let me know. He's a real estate. He does real estate. He's also in the restaurant business. He does have a restaurant located in Chicago. He started about 2007. The construction, it opened up about 2009. He has an office in Chicago. He has an accounting firm called Winkler and McDavid. It's been open since 1984. He went to Kenwood Academy for high school. He went to Augustine for college. He became a certified accountant in 1997. When
Hold
he
on.
became an accountant,
Him and Rob went to the same high school.
Yep.
Different years, but same high school.
Yep. He said when he became an accountant, he had other sources of income already, which was real estate. He said he pretty much bought and flipped houses. And he did 1031 exchanges, which is houses and apartments. He did 1031 exchanges, which is when he would get a house apartment, he paid no taxes on those. He said he got involved because one of his biggest clients was a real estate broker, and he had a variety, was a real estate broker, and he just seen all the money that he was making. And He just got involved and took off. He said he had a variety of clients, doctors, lawyers, movie clients, producers, news personnel, etc. Between accounting and real estate, he said he was making really good, absolutely really good money. At that time, he said he met with, I'm sorry, at that time you met him. What were your real estate holdings at the time he met Rob? He said he had about 6 or 7 properties. He said, so your income was substantial? He said, yes. Um, he said his firm represented the Hughes brothers, who were responsible for the movie Menace to Society, and Sinbad was also one of his clients. How extensive did it come? How extensive did his work become? He said it was enough for him to open a second office in California. He said, and that was not because of Kelly, but because of all his other clients he had. He said he went there probably every other week. He established that office in approximately 1990 to 1991. He said, before you knew about the possibility of representing Rob, do you recall when you first heard his name? He said, yes, I was playing cards at a friend's house. My friend walked in and it was ecstatic because he said he had just signed R. Kelly in public announcement and he was positive R. Kelly was going to be the next big thing. He said he was starting to do accounting work for Rob in around 89 to 90. He said the length of that time that had passed was a couple of years from the time at the card party till the time he started working for him. It was a couple of years that had passed. He said at another time, Derrel Porter, who worked for WGN, had called him and suggested that he represent Rob, and that was 1988ish. He said when he got that phone call from Derrel Porter, he simply said, "This kid is going to be big one day. Do you want to work with him?" They asked, "How long was it before you actually How long was it before you were actually contacted, before you actually started working for him?" He said that was 1991. Derrel Porter had contacted him again and put him in touch with Barry Hankerson. At that time, Derrel McDavid asked for a bottle of water. He said he was.
And he was sipping his water every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I should have some water. He said, who were you in 1990? He said he was a personal manager. Who was he in 1990? He was a personal manager. Did you ever meet with him? He said yes. We met at I think he said Knickerbocker Hotel in Chicago. He said he met with Rob. It was myself, Barry, Porter. We met for this meeting. We talked about 10 or 15 minutes. This is Barry. Barry, I'm sorry, you guys. He was asking who was Barry in 1990. He said Barry was like his personal manager. Derrel McDavid said he met with Barry along with Porter at the Knickerbocker Hotel in Chicago. They talked for 10, 15 minutes. They looked over at Porter. Barry said that he thought McDavid looked good. And the next step was for him to meet Rob. He said he met Rob at the studio. It was at that time it was Porter, Rob, Derrel McDavid were all there, and maybe a few engineers. He said his first encounter, if he had to describe Rob, was the first words out of Rob's mouth was, "Have you heard my music?" Derrel McDavid said no. Rob looked down at the floor. He looked somewhat disappointed. He said he would describe Rob as being a shy introvert, maybe humble, just trying to make it in the music business. That was his interpretation of Rob in the beginning. He asked Was he the Rob asked him, was he the guy that would be handling his money? And he said yes. Rob smiled and said that he was hired that same day. He said he was first hired as his accountant. There wasn't much money, but he pretty much just made sure like his taxes was filed and all of that was done. He said Rob had no experience with money, so he would ask him for help. Um, he said he would ask him for help, and so that he would guide him the best he could. He said the work then increased after the first album, which was born into the 90s. It was a success. It went platinum. It sold over 1 million copies. It opened up other income streams. They went from having not much money to about 700,000 to $1 million. His duties included at that time hiring more insurance brokers, agents, and other professionals. They asked at what point did your status change significantly? He said, yes, that was around 95, 90, 94, 95 with the release of 12 Play. That was Rob's first solo album. He gave jurors a understanding of how successful that album was. He said, well, pretty much in the first week, he sold 212,000 copies and went on from there. He went multi-platinum, maybe about 4 to 5 times. He said he first personally realized that Rob would be a superstar when he was with his sons and wife, and they had went to Georgia. While they were driving, his wife was listening to a country music station, and all of a sudden 12 Play came on. He said he glanced over at his wife and said, I think he made it. They asked, did Rob have any other income at that time? He said yes. He received money from producing, writing for others. He was also credited for inventing the remixes, and he got paid from concerts. So when he produces for other artists, what does that mean? Well, he writes songs, he tailors it to that artist, and then he performs it on how he wants the artist to sing the song. He described Rob as self-contained. They asked him, what does that mean? He said Rob has the ability to write a song, create the music, put the melody behind it, play the instrument. He said you could set him right over there at that table and he could produce a hit right there, from right there. They said they created R. Kelly, and it ended up being a very lucrative for them. He said at first he was paid hourly, but then that changed to a percentage, and it changed more over time. He said it changed to a percentage because he went from being an accountant to being his business manager. That happened around the mid-90s. He said it kind of going from being a accountant to a business manager is kind of similar from going from being a patient to being a doctor. The finances, the money increases dramatically. He said he handled anything and everything that had to do with finances, bill pays, buying cars, making sure everything was insured. He said Rob would call and say he wanted a new car. He would try to convince him to get a used one, but Rob would end up getting a brand new one anyway. He said if he wanted a house, he'd help him get that too. He said they gave more details about that. If Rob indicated that he didn't want to be, he said at that time when it came to details, Rob would always indicate that he did not want to be involved with any of those things. If it was something that Rob wanted to obtain, he would ask Derrel McDavid, and Derrel McDavid would try to see if he could fit that into Rob's budget. If it was something that he could actually afford, the accounts were set up. The accounts that were set up for Rob's business, they were basically subtractor corporations. So you have Bass Productions, you have R. Kelly Publishing, and you have R. Kelly Touring. Bass Productions basically the money that went into that account came from his record royalties, incomes, anything like that. His R. Kelly publishing, anything that dealt with publishing, writing for others, records being played on the radio, etc. All of that went into that account. Then the touring was pretty much what he made on his tours, and spot dates. All that money went into there. Then he had his home account. The home account was just used basically for home expenses, bills, gas, lights, rent, etc. Um, he said with Rob's success, Derrel McDavid's duties did expand. Derrel McDavid explained it as more money, more problems. He said the more money, the more things expanded, the more houses he bought, the more cars, etc. Tours were an important thing money-wise because you had to put on a production. The production costs the amount of money. The amount of money you got paid has nothing to do with the production costs. It was very important to keep the money in line to make sure that he had made a profit. Because sometimes, he said sometimes they would get into fights and disagreements because Rob always wanted to go over the top. He always wanted to have big stages and fires and etc. And it was Derrel McDavid said it was just a lot of drama with tours. But again, if you were playing out because Rob had to pay for those production costs, it was Derrel McDavid's job to make sure he stayed in budget, because if you're making less than what you're paying out, where's the profit? So he said he described how the relationship changed when he said it went from a business to a friend to him considering Rob as a son. He said Rob personally changed, yes, with success. He said the Robert I knew over time, he said over time he knew Robert, but over time it was R. Kelly who existed. What do you mean? He said, well, when people get successful, at first he was always joking around as a friend and everything. He said, but then he started to act like a superstar. And most superstars do that. He said at first he was really shy around women, but he became more confident, wasn't shy anymore. He said one day I went to the mall with him. The younger Rob would have been too shy to talk to the girls. This Rob embraced it. He said as he reached superstardom, what did you observe with Rob? When he started conversing and with women and etc., being more open. He said this was around the 12-play album in 94, 95. He said, explain your observation with women. He said, the way I observed it, he was flying a lot of women in and out of town, putting them in hotels. You're talking about adult women. He said, yes, grown women, adult women only. So based on what you observed, you would say Rob commonly had relations with multiple women at one time. He said, yes, like most superstars do, of course. He said that didn't strike you as alarming, did it? And then there was an objection. It was overruled. He said he didn't think it was alarming at all because his behaviors were no different from any other celebrity. After 12 play, describe the relationship with Barry. He said Barry was a very unique individual. He lived in California. Rob lived in Chicago. The more successful Rob got, the more attention Rob needed. Barry was in California and he was working on a lot of other things, so he wasn't able to give that attention. He also became very controlling. He started showing up to the studio with bodyguards. He said they delivered to him. Him and Rob felt that Barry was trying to intimidate them by doing that. He said Barry's role decreased at some point, and his role ended up increasing. He said Barry's relation with Rob ended in around late 99, early 2000. The events that led to that, he said sometime in 1999 in LA, they were at some type of chick chat. Said Barry had walked in. Well, it was a group of them at the table eating. Rob, Derrel McDavid, and others. He said Barry had walked in and thought someone was trying to take over Rob's career. He got heated. He began to start yelling. Then he flipped over a table. At that point, Rob and Barry went outside and they actually had a fist fight. At another time, at a concert, Barry got into an argument with a promoter. He flipped over the table again. At that time, Rob told Derrel McDavid that he needed to call up Jerry Margolis, and get rid of Barry. Derrel McDavid said at that point he brought up Derrel McGolis. So now the questioning is going to go into who he is. Derrel McDavid said he started hiring lawyers, insurance agents, more professionals, etc. He said the first time he got a lawyer, he was looking for the best in the entertainment. The entertainment lawyers are experts at doing everything for the artists and making sure that they were always right. He said he called Derrel Porter to help him select an attorney. Derrel Porter gave him 3 names. Out of those 3 names, Derrel McDavid said he chose Jerry Margolis. He was one of the most respected and knowledgeable attorneys in the country. He represented even the Rolling Stones. He said he met him in Chicago at a restaurant. That was his first reading, and he was impressed by Jerry because he said he had such a gentle, non-assuming person that he had never met. He said he was very down to earth, could talk to him about anything. He said he told him he was going to be handling his entertainment work. He was hired in about 1994. He had met with Rob next. Derrel McDavid said he was present for that first meeting. He said Rob, it had to be at the studio because Rob was always at the studio. What was decided? He said, oh, they clicked right away. Rob looked over at me and said, hire him. Was there any concerns that Margolis had? He said he had none. His relation with Margolis was work, then friend. He said he mentioned again that Jerry Margolis was one of the smartest people he knew. He was kind. He always made time to talk to people. He was just a good person. He really looked up to him. He even mentioned, oh, he was even smarter than me. They asked, do you recall the first time someone threatened to file a sexual lawsuit? He said yes. 1997. It was Tiffany Hawkins. Through who? He said he found out through Jerry Margolis. He said they had received the facts from Susan Loggins saying Tiffany was pregnant and it was Rob's baby. And that's all that facts had said. Margolis had said to contact Rob. They both had placed a phone call. They asked, what did you say to Rob? He said, we just asked him, is there any way that there's any truth to this? Robert answered, impacted him on what to do. Okay. So they asked him, did Robert's answer impact you on whether it was true or not? He asked that question several times. I'm probably not gonna repeat that, but did Robert's answer impact you on what your thoughts was? He said yes. What did Robert say? He said, hell no, this ain't true. I'll take a paternity test. He said Margolis and then filed an injunction to stop this from getting out and doing other things. John Toohey was then hired as an assistant. He was a prominent commercial attorney at that time. He was a prominent commercial attorney in the country, and he was hired per Rob and Margolis' instruction. He said Toohey handled the filing of the injunction to his knowledge. He said after he started investigating it, it pretty much immediately disappeared. He said the lawsuit was withdrawn. He said at that time, that's how the impact that happened with them withdrawing it led him to believe that the accusation wasn't true. He said, and another reason is because, one, she never went to the police. She was allegedly a minor that never went to the police. And he said, and that would have been the first thing that someone should have done. And he said also, the police and the law enforcement never contacted Rob. And he said, and then when Rob offered to take a paternity test, she never did have him do that either. After that, though, she did file another claim. She said, now this time, now it's a change in that claim. This time, it went from asking Rob for a paternity test to something else that Derrel felt like she was on bullshit. They actually said it. He said, Derrel McDavid says, if he would think if someone said they had sex with you as a minor, you would go to the police. But the important thing was first you were pregnant, then you withdrew that lawsuit, then you turned around and filed a lawsuit and said that he had sex with you as a minor. He shared his thoughts with McGullis about these kind of claims. McGullis told him he represented hundreds of artists that had to deal with this, and it was fairly common in this industry. McGullis then had Tiffany investigated, and then they told him they was going to give her a deposition. He said we had discussed that Rob would be vindicated of this when it's all over, and McGullis pretty much said because that's the way it goes. But Rob would probably have to settle. Derrel McDavid said he was confused by that. And McGullis told him that even though it was a rumor, things like this could hurt your client. Even if it wasn't the truth. He said at that point that made sense what McGullis had said, and plus he had more experience. David McDerrell said he attended that deposition that they did with Tiffany. He said, and because McGullis had told him, I want you to be here to see how this stuff goes. He said Tui, Barry Hankerson, himself, McGullis, they were all there. McGullis had actually questioned her for over 7 hours. And it proved that she was a liar. She got caught in her lies multiple times. He said it was just obvious that someone was just looking to get paid. At the end, Susan Loggins had actually said, well, can I get anything? What can I get? And there was an objection.
Dottie.
Yes.
Can we get the transcript from that?
What?
We could.
What?
Can we get the transcript from that Tiffany Hawkins lawsuit?
Oh, I mean, it's public, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you can get that. Jennifer and I went to the Daily Center and got it. So let me see. Susan has said, is there anything that I can get? What can I get from this? McGullis has said, I'll give you $250,000. Tiffany was asking for $10 million. Derrel McDavid said, that fact further let me know that these claims was a bunch of lies. He said, because if she was telling the truth, who goes from 10 million down to 250,000? He said, that experience impacted his thinking on that the people that made these claims were not true, that were not to be truthful. He said also because she had told so many different stories and lies. McGullis has said again, it's just the way this goes. He said, I'm gonna ask some general questions. But okay. After the Tiffany, did Susan bring any other people into your office? Yes. What was notable about them? Derrel McDavid said, I called them cookie cutters. He said, can you explain? He said, I called them cookie cutters because they were all pretty much telling the exact same stories. He said, how did it impact your thinking that they were the same lawyer was bringing in all these people? He said, again, it can't be true. He said Susan had actually put up billboards on expressways and did commercials saying, if you need to sue R. Kelly, I'm the person to call. Again, they asked, do you feel that these claims had impacted your thought? Derrel McDavid said the claims were not true. Because you have someone actually saying, if you want to sue him, call me. And he said, that just amazed me. I never seen nothing like that before. McGullis handled most of all the civil lawsuits with John Toohey. The three and Susan Loggins, the three had worked together. Derrel McDavid said he wasn't involved. He just pretty much wrote the checks. He consulted when the claims came in, but he was consulting, and he was told when they was coming in, but he never got into detail. He said the process was the same, and they all ended up in settlements. In context to Rob's career, how significant was the amount of money being spent on the lawsuit? He said in comparison to what he was making compared to the settlements, the money was little to nothing. And Jerry McGullis had handled all of it. He said Jerry had talked to him about all the lawsuits and told him, Derrel McDavid, that they were all bullshit. He never seen a situation where the same lawyer kept bringing people and putting up billboards. He said this shit never happens. He said this made Derrel McDavid believe that none of this was true. So at that time, the civil suits wasn't something they were really worried about. The most important thing was that Rob's career wasn't affected by these claims. Jerry ended up hiring, I feel like I'm reading a book, y'all. Jerry ended up hiring Jack to assist with all the claims that was coming out. He said he met Jack at a restaurant in Chicago. What he was told was like, he said what he was told, he said Jack was kind of like a detective out of a movie. He said he walked in the restaurant with a long trench coat on, and it was just something about him. He said he cased the room before he even came in. Jack was extremely concerned. Jack was extremely a detailed person in making sure he had all the facts right. He was convinced that Jack was the best, and he thought that it'd be a good idea to hire him. He said he had learned from Jack that Tiffany was contacted by Demetrius Smith, who put her in contact with Susan Loggins. He was told by Jack that Demetrius Smith was significant because he had been one of Rob's closest friends for decades. His problem was that he lied, he stole, and he couldn't be trusted. Speaking of Demetrius Smith. They asked, he said sometimes when Rob called Demetrius stealing, he'd turn around and give him a raise. He said in the events that Rob got, he said, so after so many events of this, Rob got tired and he eventually ended up firing him. He said that didn't go well because Demetrius had thought he was owed at least 5% of all Rob's earnings. He said that's when Derrel McDavid knew that this was all a money grab from him. Jack continued to do the work. He did an interview with Asti Wilkins. Asti, Watkins. He said he had found out about her through Jerry McGullis. He said Jerry McGullis did the reports and he sent them over to Derrel McDavid to read. At that time, we took a break for lunch. Okay. After we came back from lunch, the judge had confirmed that he received a copy of the unsigned complaint. He asked the government what questions would they be asking in regards to that. The defense was already brought up issues dealing with Susan Loggins. They should be allowed to ask questions about that. They began discussing different paragraphs within their complaints. I don't know what each paragraph detailed, so I wouldn't be able to tell you guys. All I know is that they refer to it as like paragraph A, B, C, D, E, and those were the things that they wanted the judge to rule on. But I don't know what they were about. I do know that these were unsigned documents that pertain to Jack Palladino records. The government wants to be able to question on certain parts of these records. Derrel McDavid team says, he says if they ask certain questions about certain things, then they want to be able to follow up with questions to show, because basically if the government says, did you not do this? And Derrel McDavid answers to that, the government wants to be able to show, well, I didn't just do that, but I did all of this stuff too, that he should be able to come out and talk more in detail about this. So the judge says only reference the complaint if it needs to be impeached. So if it doesn't need to be impeached, don't reference it. Meaning, unless Derrel McDavid said something different in this courtroom today that he said on those records, don't refer to this complaint. They asked, who did you say Palladino said? I'm sorry, who did you say Palladino said introduced Tiffany to Susan Loggins? Demetrius Smith. You received reports of this interviews Margolis did with Watkins? Yes. Did that impact your beliefs on whether they were being truthful or not? He said, yeah, it made a big impact on that. They began to look at exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Have you reviewed these? Yes. Do you recognize them? Yes. Were they provided by Margolis? Yes. They were authored by Jack Palladino? Yes. Did you review around January 2001? Yes. Did they impact your belief on whether they were telling the truth or lying? Yes. The government asked for objection, then asked for a sidebar. Eventually, the docs were admitted. Exhibit 1. It's a report of the investigation that was authored by Jack on Asti Watkins, January 19, 2001. It's entitled the Kelly Defamation Report. Watkins told them that that Demetrius Smith, she had told Demetrius Smith that she had been intimate with Rob, but she had not been intimate with Rob until after she had turned 18 years old. She then said, but if you want me to, I can say that it happened earlier. I still have plane tickets, so she could still get the $12,000. She said at that time, Demetrius was immediately jumped. He wanted to jump on that and told her, yes, let's do that. That's good. Demetrius asked her if she could say that she had sex with Rob before she was 18. She said she did. She did tell him that she wasn't. He also told her to ask to say that she had oral sex. Demetrius also told her to fake a police report in Orlando and that he would actually go with her if she needed assistance in filing a police report. She said she told him that while they were underage. Okay, she said that he told her to tell the police that he had offered her oral sex while she was underage. She said at that point Smith had offered her another $10,000. Demetrius Smith, so Derrel McDavid said he knew that Rob was being set up by Demetrius Smith and that all of this was lies. Ashley Watkins said that she was willing to do this as long as she got paid. She said she had talked to an attorney and told the attorney that she was actually 18 years old. She did tell Demetrius Smith that she was 18 years old, but she was willing to lie. She said she wanted to be sure that Demetrius Smith had told the attorney before she did. And this is what Watkins is telling to Palladino about what happened, what occurred. Derrel McDavid said that's how he knows that the interactions he's had with Tiffany, and from reading the interviews on Watkins, he knew that Rob was being set up by Demetrius Smith because Demetrius Smith pretty much hated him. In Exhibit 2, it shows Watkins informed them that she had been contacted by Demetrius Smith. She was offered money to lie about her sexual relationship. They wanted her to commit perjury, and they told her that money was going to be provided by Barry Hankerson. Demetrius Smith offered her $10K if she would meet with that attorney to make these claims, and then she could win hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuit money because she would win hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuit money because Rob was settled instead of having the bad publicity. And Demetrius was expected to get a portion of that lawsuit money. Derrel McDavid said it made him sick to know that Demetrius Smith would do that, knowing that him and Rob had been friends. He said after telling this to the attorney actually at that time stopped the interview and said, "We cannot do this because it's all based on fraud. We can't continue this interview." That attorney was not Susan Longus, by the way. Next, Palladino had Watkins wear wire, actually. In Exhibit 3, it was the declaration of Ossie Watkins dated January 26, 2001. So after 12/21/2000, the Sun-Times article came out. The general, which is Gerald, called and he had spoken to Barry, and he said that there would be $10,000 up front for her testimony. She then was to contact Demetrius, who had wanted to get statements from her against R. Kelly. This made Derrel McDavid worried because he said he was kind of scared because they were after Rob. And he said at that time Barry had claimed that he was owed $1 million. Demetrius told her to testify that she only had sex with Rob while she was 17, and even though she said she didn't tell him that, she said she was over 18. Demetrius Smith then tried to coach her in this lie to make it more credible to include descriptions of sex acts, including how he performed oral sex. Even though she said she was over 18, he still told her to testify falsely about her age, and he would give her between 10 and 12K, and then they would sue Rob, but that settlement would obtain hundreds of thousands, and Demetrius again will get a portion. During all of this time, Derrel McDavid said all the claims, which was 2 so far, he knew that they were all lies because he was basing it on the evidence and his experience and with Tiffany, so he knew that none of this could be true. After reading the report, how much involvement did you have in civil suits? He said little to none. Why? He said because I was a manager, I had a lot of other work to do. I had hired the best of the best, and I let them deal with this. He said I wrote the checks that they asked me to. He said at that time I had no reason to change my thought about anything. I still thought everything was false. He said Margolis told him that he believed. Margolis told him that he believed Demetrius Smith and Barry Hankerson was on a campaign to destroy Rob, and that Barry had all the means and the power to do it, and it was very concerning for Margolis. In December of 2000, they asked what happened. What were you made aware of? He said Rob had called and said, "My goddaughter is being harassed by law enforcement to admit to an inappropriate relationship with me." He said, "Was that the first time you heard of that?" "Yes." So what did you ask him? He said, "I had to ask him, was there any truth to these allegations?" He said, Rob said, "Are you out of your goddamn mind? This is my goddaughter. Of course there's no truth to it." He said Rob told him he thought Sparkle was responsible. Sparkle, aka Stephanie Edwards. She had a personal and professional relationship with Rob. She was working on her second album while dating Steve Huff, who was a Chicago producer. And she wanted Rob to allow Steve to produce some of the second album. Rob wasn't having it. And after that, she was dropped from the label. Sparkle never sold another album, and she hated Rob because she felt like he had destroyed her career. Barry was fired right along 1990, 2000. Sparkle was fired sometime after that. She ended up working for Barry Hankerson Artists, and Barry was actually the only one to try to get her another record deal after that. So because of all of this, Derrel McDavid did not believe anything was true. He called McGullis. They began an investigation. They called Jack, and they went to Jane and the family to see if it was true in 2001. The results from that interview that was given to him by McGullis from Palladino was that it did not impact his feelings if these accusations was true, meaning he still felt that they were false. They showed Derrel McDavid Exhibit 4 and 5, which was copies of the report of interviews with Jane, redacted reports. He reviewed the reports. These were done in 2001, January 2001. Yes, Mr. Brinkley moved them into evidence. They were accepted. Exhibit 4, it was a confidential memo to counsel. Lawyer on this was Daniel Toohey. This was Jane and her family's attorney. He had worked with McGullis on these issues. On page 3, it says the Chicago DCFS visit. They conducted an interview with Jane, her parents, and her maternal grandparents. They asked if Kelly, in the report, it asked if Kelly ever felt you, if Kelly ever been alone with you, or if Kelly ever made you feel uncomfortable. She answered no to all of the questions. The police then said that they were getting anonymous calls saying that the parents had been warned about the relationship she had with Kelly. They said the parents knew about the inappropriate acts from R. Kelly and Jane, and they also were allowing them to have sex on places like on the bus while Kelly was on tour. Jane said that she had never even toured with him and was never alone with him. Her godmother, which was Drea Kelly, was always there. The law enforcement officers pressed her several times, and she continued to say no. Derrel McDavid said he knew that wasn't true because if she had denied it to the police over and over again, and no law enforcement agency ever contacted Rob or any of his people to get his side of the story, that meant it must have not been true. Derrel McDavid said that further enforced that nothing had happened. Page 5 of that document, December 2000, visit with the police department. Officers said that they were forced to come out because they had received daily calls from a female calling demanding to go out and investigate, or she was going to go to the press. Derrel McDavid knew at that time it was Sparkle. Jane continued to say no to the questions and said she did not know. In that, they asked her if she knew of a Tiffany Hawkins, and she said she did not know of Tiffany Hawkins. They asked him, Derrel McDavid, when they asked if Jane knew Tiffany, what did you think? Derrel McDavid said he knew that Barry was behind this because of all the people that was in the room during the Tiffany deposition. Nobody else at that time knew about Tiffany but him. He hated Rob, so who else would do it? Palladino also reports that the officers asked for Sparkle's last name and her address, so that let them know that the police also believed that Sparkle was the one making the calls. After all of this, Derrel McDavid still believed that nothing was true. They were investigated twice, and nothing was ever found out. Page 6, Palladino reported that the family told them that Sparkle was bitter and they didn't want to be involved in her disputes with Rob. Derrel McDavid said he just couldn't believe what was going on. He couldn't believe it. Exhibit 5, the Declaration of Jane, dated January 5th, 2001. She was 16 years old at the time. She basically gave her statement to Jack Palladino saying that she has cooperated with authorities She said Rob's never touched her or done anything improper or made her feel uncomfortable in any way. She has told officers the same thing. This was a 2-page handwritten statement from Jane. Derrel McDavid had no reason to disbelieve her. She also said that the source of these rumors had to be coming from someone that was very angry with Rob and did not care about the issues that they were causing her family. Derrel McDavid says he still believed what Rob was telling him. Article published in the Sun-Times was in December of 2000. It was referencing the DCFS case investigation. And he said when he seen that article, he immediately knew what they were talking about. He said McGullis had sent him a letter. McGullis had sent Derrel McDavid a letter that Jane's lawyers had sent to the Sun-Times, and this also helped support his belief that it wasn't true. Exhibit 6 was the letter that was wrote to the Sun-Times in February of 2001. It says they asked him how he reviewed the document. He says yes. It was provided from Tui to McGullis. Yes. Showing document 6, it was a letter from Tui. He says he's retained to represent Jane, saying it says that the Sun-Times made false and derogatory statements regarding her relationship with R. Kelly. She has always cooperated and denied any claims of ever being involved in any sexual context with Kelly. This further made Derrel McDavid believe that everything was false because of how the lawyer is even writing these letters. This means that she was obviously telling her own attorney the same thing that she was telling everybody else over and over again, that everything that was being said was false. He was disappointed that the news outlet would publish something that was a lie, and they weren't even interested in the truth at that time. It showed him that they could not place trust in that newspaper when it came to R. Kelly. At that time, when these allegations were made, did you hire any criminal attorney? No. Why? There was no need to. There was no base. Jane denied everything from the beginning. The combination of the reports of Jane and Tiffany says that none of this is true. And then as far as Osty's statement, it felt like all this was just a big plan that Barry Hankerson was behind. At that time, we took another break. Okay, before I go any further, do we need a break? Is there any questions? What y'all think so far?
They tried to frame this man.
I know people like, just keep going. It was interesting. It's getting good, y'all.
Y'all got y'all popcorn ready?
Yeah, let me keep going. It's gonna be long enough. Okay, so when we came back, they asked, do you remember who was the first person you said to have the sex tape of do you remember the first person you said to have had a sex tape of Rob with an underage girl? Charles Freeman. He said, how did you find out? Rob called me around the summer, August 2001. He said, how did you learn about it first? He said, from Rob. He said Chuck had called and said that he had a sex tape, and Rob said Chuck said he would sell it to the media. I'm sorry, well, not with underage girl. At that time, it didn't say that. But he said Rob said that he had a sex tape that he would sell to the media unless Rob paid him. They asked him, did you hear Charles's testimony? He said yes. Is there any truth to him saying that you called him concerning the tape? There was an objection, then there was a sidebar. The story Chuck told about going to Georgia and kicking in doors or knocking on doors and etc. Was there any truth to that? He said no. Rob had called and said Chuck wanted money or that he would sell it to the media. He said that was the first time he had heard about that sex tape. Did you ask Rob if there was a tape of him with other women? He said yes. He said, and what was Rob's response? He said, Rob said, yeah, probably is a sex tape. He said, was there any effort of him trying to deny this? He said, no. Okay, so let me explain that, yes. That's why I had to go back and retract, because the first person that said anything about a sex tape was Charles Freeman, but there was no mention of any other underage girls. So when Derrel McDavid asked Rob, well, did you make a sex tape? He told him, yeah, like, okay, I make sex tapes all the time. So he said, and Rob didn't try to deny it or hide it or anything. They asked him, did you contact anybody? He said, yes. Magolis. Why? He said, because he was the one that I always called during these type of situations. He said, even if there was a rumor of a sex tape, this could ruin Rob's career. He said they just needed to get the tape back. This was still around August 2001. He said, so Magolis wanted to try to obtain the tape. He said, yes. He said he thought Chuck was just a low-level t-shirt guy. He said he had worked very early in Rob's career with the group talent. Why not report him to the police for blackmail? He said because Magolis didn't want the tape out, and he didn't, because that would probably hurt Rob's career. So we just wanted to get it back. At that time, no one was making any claims of any underage girl on the tape, and so they didn't need a criminal lawyer, because from his perspective, it was a grown woman on that tape. There was no crimes being committed. Okay, so he says he didn't know how much at that time Chuck actually wanted for the tape. When did you consider Chuck to work for you? He said, I wouldn't have that man shine my shoes. He said he was a bad person and that gave him bad vibes. He said at this time, Rob's career, he was superstar. He said he was making millions at this point. Magolis said to him about the dangers of that sex tape. It could damage his career, even if it's a fake tape. Magolis said that he had lots of prior experiences dealing with these type of things. Jack Palladino was the one that they engaged to try to get the tape back. By 2001, Jack had been working for them for quite a while. Jack, Jerry, and John Tweed had all worked out how they was going to get Chuck, on how Chuck will be handled. First, Jack investigated Chuck. Then they met with Chuck to see if he really had the tape, and if he did, they would pay Chuck for the tape. The decision on how much it would be, he said he was not involved in that decision. That was actually between Chuck, John, Chuck, Jerry, and Jack. Were you involved in any conference calls with Chuck? He said, I don't remember speaking to Chuck but more than one time, which was years later after that. He said Jack had a convo with Chuck. Every time Jack had a conversation with Chuck, he was billed for it. Originally, when you were told Chuck was being paid, did you agree to it? He said no. He said, I didn't see why we should pay him. I would have preferred to go to the police. But Jerry and Jack convinced him that he was out of his league and and it was right for them to pay him. Derrel McDavid said he felt that he felt like Chuck would just keep coming back for more money. But he said instead he still took their advice because they were the best of the best. R. Kelly had no parts in any of these discussions. He said he always left that type of stuff to others. Chuck was supposed to get $140,000. Did you ever tell Chuck that you would give him $1 million? He said no. It was never even suggested to ever pay him $1 million. Who prepared the docs to deal with Chuck? He said Jack Palladino. They showed him a copy of the document. He said, is this it? Yes. You talked about this earlier. Was it Chuck's idea to start up the contract? He said, yeah, it was. He said, and it was prepared. He said nobody really trusted Chuck, and after his combos, it was just decided that it was a good idea to have that contract. They showed Exhibit 320, which was the agreement for the award and expenses. The government, this is their exhibit. They actually showed this in the beginning. They said Chuck agreed to the $140,000. This was the only amount of money agreed to him. Yes. For extorting R. Kelly. Yes. Conditions, he had to turn over all the materials. Materials is referring to the tape. I do need some water, Nova, if my niece would be so kind. And he was successful at passing the polygraph test and the PSE test regarding copies of the tape. This all was in August 2001. August 21st. Dates are important here. 2001. Was it your understanding that he was supposed to turn over the tape the same day? Yes. Does this document support that he was supposed to turn it over the same day? Yes. He said if they didn't agree to give Chuck the $140,000 to get the tape, Chuck was going to be putting it out in the media. How long did it take Rob to make that amount of money? Derrel McDavid said normally he could make it in a day, but if he was being lazy, it'd probably take him 3 to 4 days to make it. He said that was not a significant amount of money for Rob.
He said it'll take him an hour.
He said an hour?
Yeah.
But when he was lazy, it took 3 to 4 days, right?
Right.
You got that part right. Okay, so he said, did that investigation get conducted? Yes. Were you given a report that was given to him from McGalis? He said yes. He said he read that report around the same time it was prepared in August 2001. Exhibit 7, it was a report reviewed by Derrel McDavid. He said he believed this of this report that was because Rob suggested. He said because of this report, he believed that everything that Rob had suggested that was happening, meaning he felt like he was being set up with Sparkle and everything that Rob had told him, he believed that at that point to be true. The exhibit was admitted into evidence. The government objects. There's a sidebar. The judge sustained it. Exhibit 7 is the confidential memo to counsel, dated August 17, 2001. It was received by McGalis. It is named Kelly extortion. Derrel McDavid says, in his opinion, Chuck is a slimy, untrustworthy Kansas street thug who, for a period, worked concessions at concerts. He was involved with, and he was also involved with pawning Kelly's stolen jewelry at the Cash America in Kansas City. Derrel McDavid felt like they needed to treat Chuck like a criminal. He says Chuck made him feel the initial. He said Chuck had made the initial contact with R. Kelly. Derrel McDavid believed what Kelly had told him to be true. A few days prior, they asked, did Palladino go to Kansas City to investigate this matter? He said yes. Who decided the location of the meeting? He said that was between Jack, Jerry, and Chuck. I'm not sure, but it was in Kansas. Were you comfortable with Jack going along? He said no. Said because Jack didn't carry a gun, and Chuck is believed to be a criminal, so he really wanted Jack to be protected. So he asked Chris Wilson to go with him. You guys remember Chris Wilson is was the CPD assigned to the federal task force. He testified last week.
Yeah. Hey, Dottie.
Yeah.
Now you see why Chuck kept looking over at Derrel and smiling throughout this whole testimony.
Chuck would sit back in his chair, you guys, and he'd be like, "Yeah," and just looking and just laughing. At some point, didn't they even ask him, "Who you laughing at?"
Yeah.
They
Derrel
had to
McDavid
ask him
lawyer
that because he
said,
kept smirking.
like, is something funny? And then Chuck was like, yeah.
So I'm gonna tell y'all from what Derrel McDavid says. I'm just gonna give my opinion. It's my opinion. As soon as Chuck walked out of that room and sat on that stand, the first thing I said, he one of them nickel slick ass niggas that will try to get over on you. That was my first words when I seen that man and how he said that. I could just tell when you know, you know. And for Derrel McDavid to say this, I know he not lying because that's exactly what he looked at, like just looking at him. Dang, no, I don't know where I'm at now. Okay, he talked about he wanted to make sure that Jack was protected, so he asked Chris Wilson to go with him. He knew Wilson was a CPD assigned to the federal task force. He asked a current member of the law to go with him. Yes, I did. And he said because he wanted to make sure that everything was done above the board. He wanted to make sure that Jack was protected. He said he was kind of scared and worried about him. He just didn't think that there was anything illegal or improper for them to go. He didn't think that there was anything that they were doing, anything illegal or improper for them to go and get the tape back. He said, again, I had the best of the attorneys and we had the best advice that they could give, and it just made sense, so he just went with it. He said Wilson drove, Palladino flew. Wilson picked up Palladino at the airport. When they met in Kansas, they asked him, were you there? He said, no, I was not. Were you at the meeting? He said, no, I was not. Have you ever met with Chuck anywhere in Kansas? He said, no, I haven't. He said, whenever Jack conducted work for you, what did he always send you something? He said he absolutely did. He sent me a bill. And he never left anything out of that bill. Exhibit 9 shows the billing statement for Kelly extortion. They began talking about the entries. One of them was August 2001 to August 13, 2001. There was numerous telephone calls he had with Chuck. I did write down the amounts, like when the calls from the beginning of August to the 13th totaled up to $600. In there, it nowhere says that Derrel McDavid participated in those calls. August 21st, 2001, between 2 and 5. Jack Palladino states that this is when he actually talked to Derrel McDavid. That call was $900. From August the 14th, 2001, there was a conference at the hotel with Chuck. That was between 1:30 and 3 a.m. That cost $450. Derrel McDavid said Jack's billing statements were very, very detailed. August the 14th, 2001, at 3:30 in the morning, he returned from Kansas back to San Francisco. That's when he began writing up his report on the way. So the prior report that was discussed was the report that Jack wrote after his interview with Chuck, and he had concluded Chuck was doing a shakedown. That report is dated August the 17th, 2001. Again, on August the 14th, it also states that he's en route to the August 17th report status. The report also matches up with that billing statement because the report is dated August 17th, 2001. On August the 21st, 2001, there was a consultation in preparation of the reward and expense agreement. They did a telephone conference with Freeman, with McDavid and Margolis, and he did a telephone conference with Freeman. Then he did a telephone conference with McDavid and Margolis, and then he did another one with Charles Freeman. That total came to $900. It does not indicate any of those conversations that Derrel McDavid was on the phone or that he would have talked to Chuck. On August the 22nd, 2001, between 9 and 12 p.m., there was a conference with McDavid about funding. Funding was pretty much to pay Freeman. Derrel McDavid said he wrote the check to Jack. Jack came into Chicago. He cashed it, and then he went to Kansas City with $100,000. The conference call. He also had a conference call that same day with the holographer. On August the 22nd, 2001 to the 23rd, Jack Palladino states that he traveled at 10:30 p.m. from San Francisco to Chicago. On August the 23rd, he obtained the funding, traveled from Chicago to Kansas. There was a conference with Chuck, conference with the PSE examiner and the polygrapher. He administered the test. The tests were administered to Chuck. There was further conference with Chuck Freeman that amounted to $3,900. Again, it does not state that Derrel McDavid was there for any of this. And this is also the same date that's listed on the agreement that he would have to turn over the tape in order to receive the money. And on the stand, Chuck said that he didn't take the test the same day. Was that true? No. Objection. Witness says that he wasn't there, so how would he know? Derrel McDavid's attorney rephrases the question. Based on the statement he made, is this true? True. No. Objection. Sustained. He rephrased. Did you have a telephone call with Jack? Yes. In the middle of the night? Yes. They said that the item was obtained? Yes. Was it a videotape? Yes. Consistent with the contract says on August the 23rd of 2001, correct? Yes. Based on everything that was there any question in your mind that that video was not obtained? No. Did he describe to you in context? Yes. What did he say? He said it was a copy. He could make out Kelly. It was poor quality, and he couldn't tell who the woman was. Said McGullis would have better knowledge on figuring it out. Did you have a call the next day? Did you get a call the next day? Yes, from McGullis. Discussion was about pretty much the same thing. Chuck, okay, he said Chuck was supposed to give the original. He told the same thing, that Chuck had failed the polygraph and that he was only going to be given $65,000 because he failed that polygraph. On August the 24th, 2001, it shows that Jack Palladino made another conference call with Chuck. Chuck was paid $65,000. The balance of the money was returned back to Derrel McDavid. He then put the money back into Rob's account. After Chuck provided, after Chuck provides a copy of, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. After Chuck provides the copy, was the other arrangements made to get more? He said no. They didn't make any arrangements to get any more copies or anything because one, you couldn't tell what was on the tape that they had already gotten from him, and then two, they just didn't believe that Chuck would hand over all the tapes. So Chuck said the tape that he gave you was video 2 and 3. Derrel McDavid said, I'm not sure which one is which. He said, is the tape he gave you is there any minors? There was an objection. So he rephrased, was there any concern of any minors? No. Did you guys do anything further to try to get any more copies of that tape? Derrel McDavid says no, because there were no minors. So why? Was there a criminal attorney contacted? He said no. Why would we? There were no crimes committed that we were aware of. You couldn't make anything out of that tape, so there was no reason to believe that we would need any criminal attorney. He says, so that tape that Chuck says he gave with the little girl describing her genitalia part, there was an objection. Then he rephrased, after seeing the tape that Jack saw, after seeing the tape, Jack was sending over to McGullis. He told Derrel McDavid that the tape was not the original. It was fuzzy. He couldn't make out who the woman was. Tape is much different. The one that they were sent, the tape is much different than what was shown in court. He said he had heard about Chuck lawsuits. Did he ever tell you that there was another tape? No. Did Jack ever try to obtain another tape? No. Do you know if the tape was given to Avenatti? Objection. Did McGullis ever suggest that Chuck had a video with a little girl on it? Never. Did anything come to light about these sex tapes? Yes. From Robert, one was the tape with a backup dancer, another with his wife, and another with the famous baseball player's wife. The rest were all fake. When did Rob marry Drea? 1996. Was this before Tiffany? Yes. Did he remain married after Tiffany? Yes. After Jane? Yes. December 2001. You remember hearing about a tape involving an underage girl? Yes. Who did you hear it from, Robert? What did he tell you? He said that there was a tape about him and his goddaughter. Said that he thought Sparkle and Barry Hankerson were making these rumors. Before this time, had you seen Jane? Yes, at Track Studio. I remember passing her in the hallway a couple of times and being on the elevator with her and Rob. He said, I always knew her to be Rob's goddaughter. Rob instructed him at one point to buy her a PT Cruiser. Derrel McDavid said to him, what the hell is you doing? Rob then said, that's my goddaughter, and it's her 16th birthday, so I want to get her something nice. He said, so I want to buy her a used PT Cruiser. He said that was not uncommon. He said Rob had given so much more money and lavish gifts to other people. He gave more money than what that PT Cruiser had cost to Miss McLean. He had gave DJ Wayne Williams $25,000 just because. He said at one point we were at a college and a student had walked up to him and said, listen, I'm a straight A student. I'm in my last semester of college and I need help. Rob then turned around and told Derrel McDavid to write her a check just like that. He said, so that was not surprising that he would want to buy her a PT Cruiser. He said, that's just Rob. That's what he does. He said Rob was angry and pissed off. He said he couldn't believe that anyone would make up these type of rumors. He had no fear about it. He was just upset about it. He felt he had an obligation again to ask if there's any truth to this. He said, Rob said, fuck you. That's my goddaughter. We talked about this. Don't you ever question me again about that. He said he had no reason to doubt that. He said him and Rob always had a certain tone when talking, so he believed when he said it like that he was telling the truth. Would you compare the tones from this and the sex tape Chuck had? He said, oh yeah, they were totally different. He said he acknowledged that there could be a sex tape out there with him with another woman. But in the other case, he was angry. He was frustrated. This one, it was more of a matter of fact, like, yeah, I got a sex tape. At that time, he said, with everything you know, did you have any reason to doubt what Rob was saying? No. What did you do? I called Margolis. He told Margolis, Margolis told him Rob should meet with the parents and make them aware of the accusation so that they're not sideswiped by the media. And at this point, he said something different. He told them that they should probably get a criminal lawyer. He said this had to be taken a little bit more seriously because this is involving a minor. Margolis said Barry and Sparkle had to be involved, and he knew that they were. What was his concerns? He said he was extremely concerned because Barry hated Rob so much and he had the means to make up a fake tape on Robert. Did Rob meet with the family? Yes, he did. Where? At a hotel in Oak Park. Derrel McDavid said, I actually set it up. Derrel McDavid said he was not present for this. He said this was in the afternoon. How did Rob get there? He said, I drove him. Why? Because he asked me to. He had met me at my office and we drove over there. He said Rob's demeanor in person was slightly apprehensive. He was concerned about the family being hurt by this media. He expressed again he believed Sparkle and Barry was behind it. Derrel McDavid stayed in the car while Rob went inside. Rob had asked him to do that because he said they may be a little bit more comfortable just speaking to me. be in the situation and all. You remember James saying that you wasn't present at that time? He said, yeah, correct, I wasn't. When Rob got in the car from the hotel, what did he seem like? He said he seemed somewhat relieved and calm. What did he say about what happened? He said he had spoke to Brandon about the situation. Brandon understood and that everything was gonna be okay. Rob said, Rob never said that anything of that was true, meaning anything about the tape was true. At that time when Rob got in the car, did you have any reason to disbelieve Rob? He said none. At that time, we ended the government. I mean, not the government. That was the end of Derrel McDavid's testimony for today. At that time, they started discussing the expectations of the timing. The judge said there's not really much we could do. It's not our fault that the courthouse had closed. Derrel McDavid's attorney says, Yana, we really have a lot left to discuss with Derrel McDavid. I mean, we are going over 20 years worth of testimony. And he says that they are less than halfway through. The judge was really like, he was like, we gotta speed this up. We need to rush through this. So they were saying, we want to say we halfway, but we're not really halfway. So, and then he says,
Why
and
the
I guess
judge keep rushing them?
because he already told you that they got to use the courtroom next week to take pictures. Hold on, let me finish. He was just trying to get it, I guess, because he said the reason is because they don't want to lose the jury, and they gave the jury 4 weeks. So, and he also said, and I guess the government, he said, I guess you guys are going to want to cross-examine, and then the government said yes, and then Bajin says, well, I want to cross-examine them too. And so then the judge said, well, we're doing the best that we can, so it is what it is. It's not our fault, so we gotta, if it's going longer, it's gonna go a little bit longer. So there wasn't no definite date on when this was gonna end. I'm thinking Monday, Tuesday. The way they sounded with Derrel McDavid, he's probably gonna be on the stand the majority of tomorrow. And then at that time, Majin goes to ask for a mistrial. She said because Derrel McDavid's testimony is kind of prejudicial to her clients, she moves to ask for that. She said, even though it's been denied, I'm just asking again. And of course, he said, no, it's denied. I already ruled on that. And so then she said, well, I would like to resubmit instructions at the end of the trial to be submitted to the jury regarding what she thinks that it should have just been a mistrial regarding all of the information. The judge says that they can do that. He said that they were going to probably have to do that anyway for them. Brown was granted his motion to get back his passport that was supposed to have received during lunch. The government hadn't handed it over to them by the end of the day, so they were just wanted to update the judge on the progress that was made with Brown getting back his passport. And that was it. Oh, and it's only 10:30. It's 10 early. All right, y'all.
How do I get rid of this echo?
I think.
Hold on, let me see something. How's that?
You never had an echo from me, so maybe it's just on your side. But does anybody have any questions or anything for me while I'm still on here? Miss Pat, you are so welcome.
People in the chat, do I still have an echo?
Any more witnesses being called? I don't think so. Nope. Derrel McDavid is the last.
Oh, Dottie, you forgot to tell me that the judge said that the tape's been authenticated by Jane.
So you can go ahead and tell them Because I didn't hear what you said.
The
Yeah,
tape.
it's not Dottie, good job. It's not echoing when Dottie's muted. Because remember she was having technical issues earlier. So it could possibly be, I don't know. But if you're muted, Dottie, there's no echo. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Daddy Lolo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the judge was saying that the tape's been authenticated by Jane. And Jennifer said that she wasn't shown no video. She was just shown pictures.
And so what does that mean? Does that mean
How can she say that that's her in the video when she wasn't shown no video?
hmm. So they're saying that the tape is authenticated due to Jane's testimony?
Yeah.
Mm, interesting.
But if I was Jennifer, I would have asked her some forensics questions since she wanted to authenticate it.
So how is the witness? How is she, like Corinza Harris is saying? How is she able to authenticate a tape to say that it is her on there? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Also, is Jennifer not calling any witnesses?
I don't remember her saying she done calling witnesses. Dottie, do you remember her saying that?
I'm like, oh, am I supposed to be talking? They done with witnesses.
Jennifer said she done with bringing witnesses.
She's just gonna cross Derrel McDavid. They
Oh,
just gonna ask him. Remember, she said at the end she had some questions for Derrel McDavid. She called her witness today. They did the stipulation, and her other witness was the paralegal. And the paralegal basically testified that um, whatever dates that Tracy had gave them, those were not true. There was no court filings or records or anything for Tracy in the 90s. Her lawsuit was not filed until 2000. And even when they reached out to her attorneys, the attorneys couldn't send them anything. When they subpoenaed the records from her attorneys, the attorneys could not send them anything that supported whatever date she was given on the stand.
Yeah, that's odd that she's not calling any witnesses.
Um,
Other witnesses. Character. Yeah.
I did not hear her say out her mouth that she was calling anyone else. And Lolo, you didn't hear it either, right?
no, I didn't hear her say it that she was calling anyone else. Well, I guess this is it.
So I guess what they saying when it came to Jim Derrigatis, the judge is saying if the only thing that they was gonna question him about is, do you see this book? Let's say it's a video. This videotape, did it have this label on it when you received it back in 2002? No, it did not. Okay. If that's the only thing that they're gonna question him on, the judge is saying we don't need to bring him all the way up and have him testify about something like that. And if that's all you're gonna ask him, you're not asking him about what was on the video. You're not asking him any questions that pertain to that. You just want to know that that video have this label on it when you received it. The defense were saying when he say that it didn't have that label on it, then it would prove that that was not the same tape that was used in 2002. And then they would have to, if they brought that up, then the judge was saying, well, then we got to do a whole chain of command things, and then we have to bring in all of this stuff about Illuminati having it, CNN having it, and who he got it from. We'll have to go through all of that.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know.
They trying to hide something.
And then also, I
So
want to
did
hear.
God
Oh,
is making
The judge also said Keith Morrell had already testified that that was not the same tape that he received, because he said there was no labels or anything on the tape. So there was already testimony about the particular tape that the government had in their possession not being the same one that was a part of any extortion or anything like that. At this point, it just seemed like the
Jim
judge just
Jim
don't
was
want
supposed
to
to be
get stuck.
testifying to video 1, I think.
Um,
Keith was testifying to video 4.
you said Jennifer was doing what?
I said Jim was supposed to be
But
testifying
my thing
to video
is,
1. Keith
but
was
my thing
testifying
is,
to video 4.
but my thing is, they didn't even show video 1 in court.
Yes, they did.
I thought they showed 2, 3, and 4. I mean 2 and 3.
They showed 1 when she said that he was handing her money.
Oh, so that's video 1, the log cabin.
Yeah.
It's 4 that wasn't shown. The 3.
You're right.
So I mean, I don't know. I know that she put in a very, very thorough motion, and I guess the judge figured everything that Jennifer put in these motions is going to be added to the jury instructions. Like she said, even though she knew it was going to be denied, she asked the judge to include these motions in their instructions, and he said that was going to be done.
Oh man, Jim got away again.
Yeah, he didn't have to testify again.
He got away again.
But you got to look at it like this. He was supposed to testify, but he didn't. If you know that someone is intentionally out here doing everything that they say it is, and you have no problem with speaking on every platform that anybody allow you to speak on, why would you not want to speak openly in a courtroom that you could put this bad person behind bars forever?
Yeah,
If
we
it
know
could lead to that, why
the
wouldn't you want to do
jurors
that?
don't know that.
Huh?
We know that, but the jurors don't know that.
The jurors will know that because that's what the judge said that he will allow Jennifer to put into the jury instructions.
Okay.
That was some of her motions, and since some of her motions were denied, they will be included in what the jury gets to read over when they dismiss and they deliberate. Um, so just so you know, Jim Derrel says his reason for not wanting to testify is because is he still even a reporter?
Not to my knowledge.
They said something like basically they have the same type of attorney-client privilege or whatever. When he talks to people, he has that confidentiality that he shares with them, and if he gets on the stand, then it hurts his credibility or something, and he shouldn't have to speak on what certain people said to him. He said no, he's a journalist. Is he
Well,
still a journalist?
Yeah,
I don't
they've
even
been
think he's still a
violating
journalist.
yeah, he's a journal.
agreements.
Huh?
They've been violating NDA agreements.
Well, I'm giving y'all. That's the reason why he didn't have to testify in 2008. He came with the same story. I think had they had said they wanted to question him about things other than is the tape that we have here, was it the same tape that was delivered to you? If they would have got more in detail with it, the judge probably would have been like, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and let him testify. But they said they basically just wanted to ask him, did the tape that you had received look like this? And he said for that reason, there's no sense of putting him on the stand for that. Sincerely, Bree. They went over the motion maybe for the first hour before court act before they even brought the jury in. That's why it was approved. They went over it together. Somebody said, but we know. Oh, we know who the sources are. Okay. Yep. And he said that. Thank you for my First Amendment right.
Jennifer went on Twitter and said, "You mean Fifth Amendment?"
Shamika asked, "Would he be if he's found not guilty? Would he be transferred back to New York?" He would go to New York because he has court in New York September the 28th regarding the restitution that he's going to be the amount. So in New York during the sentencing, Jennifer basically said, "I'm not an entertainment attorney. I do not know how royalties or anything like that works, so I cannot say how much my client could possibly make in the future." And the government says, well, with the streamings and everything that's going on, he has the potential to make, I want to say, a few $1,000,000 a year. And so basically, Judge Donnelly had gave them the time to put those records and everything together, so that then when they come back, they can pretty much probably do a summary of from the last time they were in New York up until the 28th, show what his gross would have been, and then they'll be able to calculate what the restitution will be from there. Restitution goes to any of the accusers that he was found guilty on, or anybody. And then you got to remember too, he has a civil suits. The civil suit is with who? Faith, Jim Pratt's, Lizette. This was filed in Texas. I know it's those three for sure. I think it's one more person, but I can't remember.
Heather?
So he got no, Heather is the state in Chicago. She already did her lawsuit and was rewarded by default. I'm talking about the suit that was filed directly after his conviction in New York. It was Jim Pratt.
So Lizette filed a lawsuit?
All four of them together is one civil suit with all four of them named on it. Faith, Jim Pratt, Lizette, and it's one more person. I can't recall who that is.
The girl with the mustache.
What was that?
Was it
Secret Service,
Javante?
I'm on my phone, so I don't know if you send me a text. It's on Do Not Disturb.
Was it Javante?
No, no, not Javante. And then also remember, Jane won in the New York, said that she hadn't made up her mind yet if she was gonna go after restitution too.
I mean, Jane won in Chicago.
No, I'm talking about the one in New York.
Oh,
Jane Doe won. She
Jane
said she
Doe
may
won
be
is Aaliyah
okay.
in New York.
Whichever
you mean
one.
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. She may be seeking restitution as well. Yeah, I'm confused. I'm sorry. Bear with me. Why even pay if it's an appeal on the table? The appeal, I don't know if it puts a pause on that. If you appeal it, would it put a pause on the on those? Well, obviously it didn't. I mean, they did garnish some of his money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, they said they haven't put it toward anything. They're holding it.
they're just holding it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he wins his appeal, well, when he wins his appeal, he gets the money back.
I don't know. Okay, so I'm not familiar with any of that, but I look at other type of federal stuff. For example, if you pay child support on a child that wasn't yours for 18 years, do you think you can walk into a courtroom and then say, I want my money back? You think they're going to give it to you?
No.
So we got to handle this as such. Probably not.
Boy.
Let me see. Does he have a state case in Chicago? Yes. He's appealing in New York, so they won't get anything yet. Okay.
With child support, I think you do get the money back, but it's not an easy process.
Yeah. From the ones that I've seen, you don't get it back. It's tricky because it's like when it comes to child support, if you sign that birth certificate, you on the hook legally for that child, whether you know it's yours or not. That's why you got to be careful with what you sign. If you don't sign and you're ordered to pay child support, let's say you go in by default. I mean, let's say you go to court and you don't show up. Then you're ordered to be the father by default. They make you pay child support. That's on you because you didn't show up for court. If you do go to court, you can ask at that time for a DNA test. If you ask for the DNA test, then they get it. It's not your child. You ain't got to be in that situation. But if you are, then you got to be in that situation.
You can get a DNA before the court, right at the hospital.
Yeah, you can get it done there. So you see what you're saying? That's why if you pay the child support for 18 years and then you find out it's not yours, that's why you're not getting it back because you had ample opportunity to take steps to make sure you were the father before you started paying the child support. That's how they look at that.
Okay.
I think that's. Somebody said he shouldn't be sitting in jail. They need to lock all of them. I agree. Um, what y'all think about? I don't even know if I even want to mention their names on here no more. It's so sad.
Jimmy didn't get away again.
Who you talking about, Dad?
I'm just talking about like how Derrel McDavid said the people that was involved was setting him up. Like I think we pretty much said all of that from 2 years ago. We pretty
Yeah,
much cracked this case.
I think pause your phone for a sec. I mean, not
Okay.
pause, mute your phone. I think people in the R. Kelly sector has pretty much solved this case a long time ago. We knew who the snakes were. We knew it was Demetrius. We knew it was Barry. We knew all the people that were lying based upon the investigation we did on our own. Um, shit, we could have did this and saved some taxpayers' money.
It's just surprising to me. I mean, we all should be, man, we some good PIs and some good attorneys because we can pretty much put every. It's certain things like we didn't know about. I see Wilk Watkins. If they had somebody that came to them and told them that they were approached and told to set up R. Kelly and stuff, why wasn't this stuff brought out? Why wasn't this used before? Or nothing, this stuff was said before. And
True.
I just want to know how many other people.
Mute your phone for a second. You're saying how many other people were involved in this? There's probably like if we could if there was a way to see all the lawsuits Susan Logan handled with I mean to put billboards and ads in the paper, like who does that? If you want to sue R. Kelly, we're gonna put a billboard up in Chicago to say contact me like a those billboards. I'm picturing one of the billboards that they have for if you've been in a car accident, call 800 such and such. I got hit. You know, those type of billboards. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, those type of billboards.
Wow.
my only thing with that is if these
And
were the
TV
best of the
commercials.
best, but my
But I
thing
think we had
is
found that out too on the YouTube. I think what's her name? Spicy Topics have brought
Mute
that
your
up.
phone real quick. What you because what you say, Dayla?
Um, it was brought to the YouTube streets because Spicy Topics have brought that up about the billboards and the commercials that Susan Loggins was using to have people come up and say that Rob did something to them. And also, Geronda said that's how she found Susan Loggins by looking through the phone book or something, and it said it.
my only issue with that is um if these attorneys were the best of the best, they knew that Rob's Fifth Amendment, First Amendment, all amendments was being violated. Why did they not try to stop this woman from helping these women to extort him by turning around and suing her? Geronda turned around and sued Susan Loggins. So why wasn't these attorneys saying, no, forget it. At this point, we need to stop settling. Let's take it to court and protect him from this. And then on top of that, make sure that this stuff was sealed closed to the point to where it couldn't be brought back up and they couldn't come after him criminally um, based on stuff that these women was already paid for. That's the part I don't understand. I'm on mute so if you guys want to speak on that.
I get it, but I kind of can pinpoint it. But right now, at the moment, I don't want to say nothing due to what's going on in court now.
Somebody said Kim Fox is a husband abuser. Yeah, it's just things that make you say, they was busy patting their pockets off him. Yeah. Susan is a whole other case. She has no R. Kelly type of money. At best, she should not be allowed to practice law for life. Lesson learned: all money isn't good money. So I feel you on that.
And I wonder why they ain't bring Susan Loggins in.
I was wondering that too. I thought that she may have been one of the witnesses.
And they tried to bring her in New York, but she had said she couldn't come because she was taking care of her mom.
Um, somebody saying,
And also Barry Hankins.
I was looking to see if I could find one of her commercials. Wow.
Spicy Topics had played it a long time ago, like 3 years ago.
let me see. I'm gonna try to find it too. I think because that's just I ain't like Jill McDavid said, I ain't never seen no shit like this before ever. Any attorney soliciting stuff like this, that's crazy. I'm gonna mute so you guys can talk.
So what was Rob okay today? I know he was sick on Friday.
He looked it okay. He was very interactive with his attorneys. He's very interactive with Derrel, uh Derrel's attorneys.
A lot of chit chatting today.
Yeah,
Guess he felt better.
yeah.
So, did y'all see on the news last week that the mute R. Kelly lady did this whole interview, and she was totally opposite of what everyone's been reporting that's in the courtroom. Um, totally opposite of what is actually happening. She reported. She was reporting that there was all these videos and
That
the
was a mute
jury
R.
was
Kelly lady.
disgusted. I think that was her.
Oh, they said. I think that was they were saying that that's some attorney turned news reporter.
Maybe so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just know I heard her mention something about the mute R. Kelly that it was just a good thing to do. She was glad something about that it
And then she said,
Daniel Sanders, is that who that was? Okay.
probably. Then she said that he didn't have no supporters in court. That part was very laughable.
That he well not yeah the about the supporters in court, but I was like, what is she, so was she said she was actually there, like what is she seeing based upon
I
what
never
you guys
seen
are
her.
seeing?
I never
You,
seen her a day in court.
maybe she was with the press.
Yeah, but even with the press, she was talking about the facial expressions of the jurors
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
you heard it, you heard that
Yeah,
interview.
yeah. She was talking about the facial expressions of the jurors. The press can't see the facial expressions of the jurors when they're in the press room.
And she wasn't in the room with you guys.
No,
Mm. And did y'all see 100 devices stacked anywhere?
no.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe they was stacked in a corner and they had them hid in the back somewhere. So the report CBS did a few hours ago was positive. That's good.
Positive come from CBS.
I guess, and this lady Danielle Sanders, I think she was on the Chicago news, right?
Yeah,
Mm. They were talking junk about who? Danielle Sanders on the news today. Ron said, I seen Lily on one of the news channel earlier. Yes, they did. CBS News. Lolo has a Howard's testimony today. You may have to go back trial and error and redo it because um,
trial and error. Derrel McDavid's testimony was very
CBS Chicago
truthful.
said at 14 years old, Jane looked like a little boy. I'm just saying.
He did. Derrel McDavid did a good job.
Mm. CBS News was saying she was lying, Ron.
So Loggins got a third out of the $250,000 for each client that she settled with against Rob.
Mm-mm. Can someone post a link to the CBS Chicago report? Daryl and Susan went to school together, real talk. Yeah, but he wasn't very, he didn't say anything positive about her today. Like they were just, she was um, basically, what was he saying about her not love?
So in New York, who was Jane Doe 4 and Jane Doe 11?
Jane Doe 4 was Geronda.
Mm-hmm.
Jane Doe 11.
11. Um, I
Um,
gotta find my tablet.
Okay, well, they were represented by Susan Loggins too.
yeah.
Okay, Corey says, well, I
See
guess
Jane
I
Doe 11 came. Or that's
Um,
probably the one that passed away or something.
oh yeah, that might have been the one that was the dancer. So Corey says, well, I guess we got 3 witnesses saying the tape didn't look like child pornography, 1 government witness, and 2 defense witnesses. Yep. Was it jury panel? I don't know. I don't
Oh
pay
yeah,
no attention.
ain't Jennifer supposed to call Diane Copeland?
That's what you know what I heard that today. Um, I was actually, but I didn't know unless she said that on that day that Tracy and them testified, because that's the day that I wasn't there. I hadn't heard her speak of Diane Copeland, so that's why I'm saying if you guys know if she was calling someone else. I don't see any ads. I'm still looking for commercials that she probably put out. What would that have been? 1996?
Yeah, 96, 97. Or the commercial could have happened in early 2000. And I was also saying this off
Oh,
the
let
air.
me mute. Let me mute so I can hear you.
I was also saying this off the air that the accuser Nia, she had also went to Susan Logan's, but she was from Atlanta. How could she have known that about Susan Logan's from Atlanta? She got family here in Chicago, and her family could have had talked with Susan Logan's, and her family and Susan Logan's would have told her family that that they was too old. They need to find somebody younger, and they miraculously found Nia.
Right. Or her family could have seen the commercials of the billboards, right?
Right, right.
Let me see. I think I found one commercial. Hold on, you guys.
I just like Diamond said, I don't understand. He had all these high power attorneys or whatever. Why could they not have stopped all these extortionist lying ass people and put a gag order and just stop them from doing all this stuff? It's crazy.
Then I keep going back to when Barry Hankerson started sending these threats to Rob about this tape, like 4 months prior to that Aaliyah passed. And a lot of people connect Aaliyah's death to him.
I'm just talking. Lola, what was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
Like 4 months prior to Barry Hankerson started threatening Rob about some tapes is coming. 4 months prior to that, Aaliyah passed away. And a lot of people connect Aaliyah's death to Barry.
Oh yeah, I heard that before too. They Hate Me says, how many payments did Susan and Derrel settle? And I think they took the advertise. Yeah, the advertise. I was. Oh, you saying the commercials too? How many? How many? Susan? What was it like? 5?
I want to say like 7.
More. It was okay. Geronda, Nia, Tiffany, Patrice, Patricia, and
Tracy,
then Tracy,
the girl that you had just
the number 11.
say,
So we
Wilkins,
had 6. Huh? I'm a mutual.
the girl you had just brought up today about Wilkinson or whatever her name is. And it could be like one more that we probably forgetting.
That was $2 million spent on just those 6, 7 people right there. And then they talked about on top of those lawsuits, he had former employees suing him. He had other lawsuits that wasn't even pertaining to any sex. So he gave $2 million away to 6 people and didn't
Then
tell her.
then Lanita Carter go through Susan Loggins too for one of her things.
Yep, somebody else just said that. Yep, 2 people just said it. The hair braided her.
Yeah,
So
because
do
I
y'all
think
think
Lanita
because
said
Lanita
they
Carter,
got R. Kelly part two.
so with Lanita Carter, since her case ain't really been heard, that's a state court. Do y'all think that maybe being that everything is being exposed when it comes to Susan Loggins and her practices, do y'all think that it'll be like a change? Meaning, would they end up like pulling out of that, or would she stop representing her, or would it be like conflict of interest or something now?
It'll probably be harder to win because now Rob's lawyers can use that, the fact that she's been involved in all these shady deals. My opinion.
So you think she would advise her just to get another attorney?
Or drop
So
it,
that can be
period.
brought up. Well, the thing is, if it's a case and the state want to pick it up, even if she want to drop the charges, they may still. That's how they did the first trial, so they
Oh,
still may proceed. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but because of the shady business dealings or whatever, he probably would lose.
Wow. But isn't that state case? Isn't it combined with other people?
Yeah, Heather.
So will all of theirs go away? So I wonder, is she representing Heather too?
Probably Heather.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So from the 90s up until now, she's still wow.
Heather, Rashana, and Geronda and Lenita in the state case. And Rashana said she wasn't even cooperating with the state case when they first brought out the charges anyway. On her own, that is. She said that when she did her testimony.
So being that she's a civil attorney, that's gonna still affect the state case, right?
I think so.
They said that Susan she didn't her or her, I guess her assistant in her office, some guy named Alexander, they did not appear in New York for court because they said of their travel restrictions during COVID.
She got more excuse than a nigga going to jail.
But then what's funny in this article, after that 7.5 hour deposition that Tiffany Hawkins had to give, she said she was then forced She wanted 10 million, but her attorney, Susan Loggins, had told her no, forced her to settle for the 250, which she took a third of. Susan Loggins ended up denying that. She said that never happened and she had actually never seen Tiffany Hawkins. She had actually worked with her assistant or paralegal in that office, which is the guy Alexander. So for some reason, like Geronda, afterwards, all of these girls was going after her.
Tracy sued her too, right?
I believe so. Yep. Sweet one, I don't know who sent Geronda to Susan.
Geronda said she found her through the uh phone book.
What are the chances that you go through a phone book? Okay.
And her evidence was jotted down in her diary.
They said that's what they get for trying to scam somebody to get money, and she turned around and scammed them. Bree said she need a DNA test be done between her child Demetrius and Tiffany Hawkins. Um, after I don't know, did y'all hear that after she supposedly made them accusations and Tiffany had went to try to sue Rob for paternity, like she tried to commit suicide.
I think she said that on Surviving R. Kelly Part 2.
But I also thought that Rob countersued her
He did.
for putting out that she was possibly his baby father,
He
her
did.
baby father. So then she turned around and changed the lawsuit.
Yeah.
I wonder why they didn't mention that in court though.
Look on Malicious Conspiracy Aaliyah video about the fake marriage, and then you'll see the newspaper article about Rob countersuing Tiffany Hawkins in that video.
Okay, I got my own money. Who are you? Let me see who they said. That my TT did good. Who is your TT?
You that TT.
Who is that?
One of your nieces and nephews, I guess.
I know my baby's in the background too. They in the bushes. Go to bed. I got my own money. Who I'm cute. I'm so um about to survive in R. Kelly. I be on Netflix and every time I see that I just want to throw something at the screen. I can't even believe that stuff is still up there.
They took it off and then they put it back on.
I can't check out the link. It's gonna be too late. It's gonna take me out of my life. Tell me who you are. That you said they took it off and then they put it back.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. That's crazy. No. Yeah, okay. She said no worries. Netflix gonna get sued too. Oh,
I
that's
say free R. Kelly because whatever he's done in 3.5 years, he didn't pay for it now. Let him go because they bullshit. Um, it, this we're not monetized over here, but because I've said several curse words. I'm sorry. And you said your babies were listening, right?
they ain't listening. I'm just
Tasha
joking. You
K be
fine.
cussing all the time, and she
No,
monetized.
you fine. What you said? I don't get monetized from this.
No, I'm saying um Tasha K be cussing all
Oh,
the
okay.
time,
How
and
you
she be
doing?
monetized.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't, so it don't matter. You can curse. Let me see.
Hey, I got my own money.
That, okay, so now I know who that is. Does anybody have any other questions or anything y'all want to talk about before we get off of here? Cause I gotta get up in 4.5 hours. So
No
that's
questions
if
can
y'all
wait
want
till.
me to be on time. Huh?
No, I was getting ready to say mute yourself real quick.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was getting ready to say you got 4 hours of sleep left. I mean, you got before you have to get up. You and Daddy Lolo both need to go to bed.
Oh, I am.
Why does
Yeah,
Derrel have so
this
much
is this
money
is
around so
this
much?
is this a when I say a full-time job, yeah, this a full-time job. Like for real. Trying
You're
to
doing
get
a
there
good
10
job.
hours early just to get in and then have to sit and they don't let you go to the bathroom. When you get in there, you can't leave. It's crazy. That's a full-time job.
Well, thank you, Daddy. We really appreciate you, baby girl.
That's Lily. I know she's been saying that all day. Thank you. I got my own money. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate y'all. So tomorrow we still have um Derrel McDavid's attorneys questioning him, and then we got to still do the cross examination. Uh, I'm really anxious to see what the cross examination is gonna be. So y'all be here same time, same channel
Same
tomorrow
place.
8:30.
I don't think they're gonna cross examine him till Friday.
Listen, the judge said they're gonna be done by Friday. When he said they're gonna be done, does that mean done as in just with the testimonies, or does that mean done as in the testimonies and the closing argument? Because if it's just the testimonies, then that means we got to go into next week with the closing argument, right?
I would think so.
I mean, take your time. Your client life on the line.
I agree. I said the same thing. Take your time with it. If you need to call some more witnesses, call some more people up there. I agree. His life is on the line right now. So you know who
Literally.
didn't call nobody? Brown didn't call nobody at all, did he? And Brown last week, they were the ones that said that they would need a day for their witnesses, and they ain't called nobody. Did I miss it?
I I'm just curious as to is this all the witnesses? Like the defense, neither attorney, neither Derrel Brown, Kelly, they haven't called very many witnesses, and I get it that the government has the burden to prove guilt, but I mean I would think that they would come up with more
That's
witnesses.
what I'm saying. Like, am I missing something? Did June Brown call any witnesses, Lola?
Um, I do not recall. I like to use they line. I do not recall.
Yeah, I think we do need because I thought Jennifer was in one of the motions she was in one of the motions pre-trial, she said that she needed more time because she was calling forensics in, and they needed more time to review the tapes. So, and I'm not sure if she said in her closing argument about bringing some people in to debunk the tapes. I do so also remember Bo McDavid's attorney saying that they were going to have a woman to come and testify that wore a wire when Demetrius Smith was trying to convince her to come and testify.
That's
So
the
they
lady
didn't
that
call her. That's the Asti Walkins. They didn't bring her in to testify. They actually just had Derrel McDavid testify to her sworn statement that she gave to Jack Palladino. That's the one that was said that Demetrius was gonna pay her anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 to lie and say she was under the age of 18 when she slept with Rob. And to go to, she must be located in Orlando because he instructed her to go to the Orlando Police Department, make that claim, and if she needed him to assist her, he would fly there to help her make the claim.
Okay, I got it. I got it now. So, and that makes sense. Thank you, everybody in the chat for, because I'm thinking with my emotions versus what makes sense. It doesn't make sense for them to call all of those different witnesses up there to confuse things even more because basically all three of those attorneys have proved and debunked everything that the government witnesses have said. Every single one of them were liars.
Yeah, and one thing I know for sure, I can remember, the defense witnesses pretty much used all the government witnesses and kind of turn them into defense witnesses. So they probably
Gotcha.
say we really don't need to because they
You're
didn't
right.
put so many. Most of the testimonies for the main people, they tried to impeach their testimonies.
Gotcha.
So
That
they
makes
probably
sense.
like they ain't had nobody credible on the stand anyway. So what are we bringing in other people? If anything, it'll be just character witnesses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe
That's
more
yeah,
character witnesses.
that's probably it.
Not anybody to testify to the authentication of the tapes other than a forensic person. But other than that, like it would just be character witnesses at this point. Because I mean, we all saw that these people lied and they're lying. I mean,
And
it's been proven they've been contradicting each other.
and wouldn't Diana Copeland be a good character witness for Rob?
Would she be? Is that
she
what
was a
you're
I
good
saying?
think so.
character witness in New York.
Because yeah, because she the one who said the reason she even came back and worked for him is because he was being taken advantage of by so many people, and she wanted to help get it back on track. And she took the one to testify how good of a person and stuff he was, right?
Yes. She's a good
So
character
I
witness.
think she'd be a really good character witness because she can tell some good and some bad. So far, Derrel McDavid has did a good job of humanizing him. No one has
Exactly.
ever said that he's humble, he's shy, he's giving, he's gave. We ain't know nothing about him paying somebody's tuition that he didn't even know. I mean, we heard certain things, but now we have somebody that actually wrote the check testifying to him. So
Yeah.
I think she would be another person that could come in
And
and
humanizing.
exactly and say,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe he said this in a type of way, but it was because of X, Y, and Z, you know?
Hmm. Got it. So yeah, I think she would be a good character witness. And you're right, based upon what you read and what was said and the reporters that were reporting during the day, um, Daryl pretty much humanized him.
Okay, love, what's your question? No I think like Tanya said, the more people you bring in, the more confusing it's gonna get. And I don't really think the judge kind of having it. He ready to speed it up, and he says, we don't want to confuse the jury too much. And a lot of the testimony was just repeat. It was all just repeated testimony. There wasn't nothing. Okay, why did they give them immunity if they're telling the truth? They got immunity for the stuff that they lied about in the past. So they didn't get immunity for this trial. They were given immunity for when they committed perjury in the 2008 trial.
Correct. Yeah.
So they may need immunity later.
Again.
Right. So we talked about that last week, right? How if their testimony is impeached now, then that opens the door for them to be hit with charges because they lying on the stand once again.
But if they line to help the government take him down, then they ain't gonna go after them.
They can cut some Section A off.
They probably gonna say we're gonna see how this goes. If it go our way, you won't have nothing to worry about. If it don't, it might be something else.
Well, we all know how the government plays, Lolo. So
Corey, it does because that's what Susan and Brandon and Jane all did. They committed perjury to the grand jury. Remember, they never testified, but they did give the grand jury a statement, and they lied under oath to the grand jury. So they got immunity for that. All right, y'all. So I'll be back tomorrow. Me, Tanya, and Lola. We'll be back with the rest of Derrel McDavid's testimony.
okay.
And we're getting down to the get down.
Okay.
Just a few days late.
I'll talk to you during the day tomorrow, whatever. But
Yes, you will.
I will see you and Lola tomorrow.
Y'all gotta start coming on the camera. Why am I the only one that's always on the camera?
I'll be on the camera tomorrow.
Thank you.
Gotta put my nightgown on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, you guys. You guys have a good night. I'm tired. I have to go to bed.
Good night.
Good night. Y'all be blessed.